Hello there, this has been Farnier, or Benevolence Ad Decorum, and here's another episode of downvoting because everyone has their own schools of thought and think that there's something else because they got the wrong result. Especially on 16 personalities, which is really 32 personalities, as it's, a Sloan code thing with the extra field making it instead of 1632, because that's how binary multiplication works there. Add another one and it doubles it. But anyhow, yeah, here we go. ENFPs and ESFPs versus ENFJs and ESFJs. Just by default, 16% of women at least are ESFJs, so that's the second largest chunk after ISFJs, who get 20%, 1 out of 5. This is more like 1 out of 6. So, yeah, though most likely it's more probable to be that than ENFPs, which, although they're still like 9%, so 1 out of 11. And I forget ESFPs. I think they're a similar percentage. But yeah, higher chance, at least a little bit, for that, and lowest chance for ENFJ. But tests like 16 personalities are going to have intuitive bias, so you're going to get the N's regardless whether you are or not. But what to do? Let's go through the hero functions. These are modes. These are the attitudes or the cognitive spectra, whatever. There's always different names for the same things, and everyone has their own definitions, yet you still get a general sense of what they're going to be like. But every time someone has a definition, the TI thing, it's just like, this isn't my particular thing, and that's a joy. Because it's like, oh no, the thing 2011 has CGI, therefore it's not good. Oh my word. That's the joy there. But alrighty. But this is least stressful to most stressful, although it's the extreme function's not always going to be super stressful. It's just not going to be like preferable. But and this is going to be disregarded. The point of least resistance, the polar function, also called the blind spot in quotation marks. You're not completely blind on that. It's just most disregarded. And whatever, here we go. Ego, the where you dwell kind of thing, more or less. And these are the shadow or the overshadowed by the ego functions here. Hero functions, what's most heroic? Extrovert intuition in ENFP, extrovert sensing in ESFP, extrovert feeling in both ENFJ and ESFJ. This is going to be, about possibilities. Now, everything has, a hypothesis and a thesis. The hypothesis is the smaller, the thesis is the greater. So, it's going to be about, the intentions of others as the hypothesis, and the possibilities as the thesis. This is going to be about the sensory perception, the sensory experiences of others as the hypothesis, and the observing the outer world in the present moment as the thesis. And this is going to be about the ethics of one's group as the hypothesis, and the the feelings of others in general as the thesis, kind of thing. And I'm not using terms that are known in any of the schools of thought. This is just from classical rhetoric, hypothesis versus thesis, not even writing. If you look up that it's the smaller versus the greater kind of thing. But yes, of course, everyone's wanting to go with, okay, extrovert. For the functions, extrovert is going to be objective, not like the connotation of being objective, but as in the object of a verb. And this would be subjective, as in facing inwards, introverted, looking inwards, looking outwards. So, FI looks inwards at one's own feelings, one's own morals, versus FE, which looks outwards at the feelings of others, extraverted. That's just what that means. If you do not have that as, like, if you don't value the feelings of others the most, the fifis, all that crap, and you disvalue your own feelings, as even though, Nemesis isn't going to be completely overshadowed, it's not going to be disregarded. That's more like an ESTP, ENTP thing, that they're going to disregard their own fifis. That value the fifis of others in a playful manner for ENTPs and ESTPs, since they have that as their third or child function. So, if you're going to value the feelings of others and the ethics of the group more, and you're not critical of the fifis of the group, then that means you're going to be having FE as a highly valued function in ego, whether you're ENFJ or ESFJ. So, yeah. That's that joy there. So those are going to value the fifis of others the most, even though, and your own fifis are going to be overshadowed, even though you're still having them accessible as your tool or your source of worries. Your source of fears is going to be your own understanding, thinking introverted. You're going to be having that as your inferior or aspirational function, your anima, in another school of thought. Soul, and this one, in another school of thought, the name for extreme is demon. So anima is soul, and that would be bad soul. This is child or bad child, trickster, polar, blind spot. Alright, parent function, the function that is parental. Like, you think in terms of a good parent, whereas this is a Synex or a grumpy bad parent sort of thing. F5, one's parental function for ENFPs and ESFPs. They're having the same judgment functions. Notice that? That's how that works. And in the middle, same perception functions for ENFJ and ESFJ. F5, parent, introverted, looking inward to their own feelings, their own morals, that kind of thing. And all the down voting has begun because there's so much mistyping and all that other crap, and everyone having their own stupid definitions. But whatever, even with different definitions, things can work similarly. So yes, you have your own schools of thought and you're incapable of listening to others. That means you're probably a TI type. So if you're not, you're probably a type with that. Yes, your polar function or overshadowed, and you can actually listen a little better sometimes. Anyway, I just love all the downvoting and incapability of listening. That's always a joy. Anyway, here we go. So yeah, FI parents are parental toward their own likes and morals. And for ENFJs and ESFJs, ENFJs have parental introverted intuition. Introverted intuition is for the hypothesis about one's own willpower, one's own wants and intentions, and for the thesis about subconscious probabilistic insight in general. And they're going to be making like metaphorical statements, more or less, sometimes, generally. ESFJs are going to have SI parent. They're going to be parental towards their own sensory experiences, introverted sensing, as well as in the thesis going to be affiliative and about nostalgia and stuff like that. About where they grew up and their groups thing. So like, I like this baseball team just because it's mine, even though they suck. But yeah, here's a child function, the one that runs amok, playful, running amok, and if you don't guard it and have your parent function keep track of it, it's going to run amok. But yeah, TE. Now, both ENFPs and ESFPs are going to be extroverting thinking. They're not necessarily stupid just because TI is their polar function. They're going to be talking things out. They're going to be thinking about the reasoning of the group. This is about organization of the outer world rather than the inner world, but they're still going to go after the reasoning of others to understand it. And ENFPs, one of the smartest friends I know is an ENFP. Just because you don't have TI in your ego doesn't mean that you're stupid. It just means you're not going to be as dense as a brick. TI types can tend to be dense as a brick, and that is a pain. And it's like, gee, sorry, But it's like, it's not necessarily that you're incapable of accepting the reasoning of others if you have TI and ego. It's just that you're going to prefer your own thinking over others. It's like Jesus said, if you don't hate your parents and follow me, you're not fit for the kingdom of God. It's not that you hate, per se, in terms of the connotations of the word we have now. It's that you love less. So TI types love their own thinking more than the thinking of others. And it's especially evident for INFJs and ISFJs who have TE polar as their point of least resistance, since they will be generally disregarding of the thinking of others and playful regarding their own thinking. But that doesn't mean that they're incapable of listening to the reasoning of others. It's that they're going to be defaulting to their fourth functions, preferring to counteract their TE polar with their fourth functions, whether it's INFJs NE anima or INFJs SE anima or ISFJs NE anima. But whatever though. Onward to the present thing here. Whoop-de-doo. So TE, and ENFJs have SE child, so they're going to be playful. So hypothesis would be sensory, I forget whether, okay. Yeah, sensory experiences of others. Hypothesis, I might have that reverse. But yeah, about the sensory experiences of others and the sensory, being present in the moment. So more playful regarding that, more running amok on that. And that'll be their first mode of stress is FESE. So more focus on that, and that going out of the way for the moment kind of thing. And NE, playful with the intentions of others, and they can be quite humorous and can actually seem like an NE hero type when they're like that. So this is probably where some of the overlap of stereotypes between ENFPs and ESFJs can appear, in addition to mistyping, because any child can seem like any hero, any third like any the first. But yeah, it's going to be, the way to tell that apart is ENFPs have more accessible NI versus ESFJs tend to not know what they want, and they'll compensate for that with TI. And inferior are aspirational functions. ENFPs are going to be more like an ISTJ aspirationally. You see, flip these functions upside down, that's what you get. And same thing here. ESFPs are going to seem more like an INTJ in the NI grip stress mode. Aspirationally an INTJ. ENFJs aspirationally like an ISTP. ESFJs aspirationally like an INTP. And here we have, okay, and yes, here's the making up for TI is SI, so knowing more things, having more facts accumulated, being like an ISTJ to make up for the TI polar, and NI making up for TI polar for ESFPs, and TI making up for SI polar for ENFJs, and TI making up for NI polar for ESFJs. ENFJs, okay. Nemesis, it's like, oh, why even bother? Everyone's already clicked off, but whatever, let's just keep going. So, nemesis modes, the shadows or overshadowed functions. Here we have a practical INFJ for their id, and this will be the source of worries. Well, this is the source of fears. Fear is valued, worry is unvalued or overshadowed. So worry about the most probable thing, but not like fearing bad sensory experiences type of thing. And this is fearing the worst versus being overshadowed on sensory experiences and stuff like that. Critic, going to be critical of the fifis of the group. Same thing here, and same thing TI polar that I've already pretty much explained enough on. And this, they have for ENFJs NE as their critics, so they're going to be critical toward the intentions of others and the possibilities. So same as ENTJs, having the same judgment functions as ENTJs, and same SI polar as ENTJs, which is going to be generally disregarding the affiliation and nostalgia kind of thing, whereas ESFJs are going to be parentally nostalgic. They're going to be fairly much that, while disregarding probabilistic insight in favor of possibilities. SE critic going to be, let's see, critical toward present experiences, that sort of thing. And maybe I don't understand that as well. So, like, if you, yeah, maybe I should review some of this stuff anyway. But yeah, let's see, critical toward the sensory experiences of others and the present moment thing. That'd be how that goes. And yeah, NI polar is a pain if you're an NI hero type to deal with. It just is one of the more frustrating things, like hitting your head against a brick wall if you try to talk that way with them, because they'll be open to the possibilities and yet unwilling to see anything in particular. And yeah, here's SE as the extreme function. So ENFPs are gonna often dress kind of goofy, and that's kind of cool. But they're not gonna be SE polar like INFPs and NTPs. They're still going to value it, it's just going to be in extreme mode. And ESFPs are going to be kind of extremely pessimistic about the intentions of others and the possibilities. So, but they're going to value the experiences of others and being in the present moment most. So it's more snazzy dresser, more goofy dresser, usually. You know, anyone can dress up for occasions, of course, but you see someone dressing goofy with colored hair, it's not that they're going to be an SJW, it's just going to be they're an ENFP. You know, unfortunately, colleges tend to indoctrinate according to turning them into that kind of thing for now, so that's a little sad. But yeah, it just, the colored hair will tend to go with the ENFPs more or less, or FI at least, and overshadowed SE. But anyhow, and yeah, TE as the extreme function is going to be a pain, but not quite as much of a pain as TE polar, so it's more accessible, but they're still going to love it less than TI. So, I don't know, that's going through all the stuff and all my wasting of time bothering to explain this to everyone that only listens to themselves anyway. So take care everyone, and try not to go crazy.